Hello. Check my sound levels. Beep beep boop bop boop. Ba da boop bop boo. I'm loving you. Okay. I think we're looking alright. How's Twitch looking? Twitch is looking good. Yeah, I need to disable that Streamlabs thing until I can... Yeah, let's turn you off. Until I can figure out how I want to use it, or if I want to use it. Tinkerin', tinkerin'. Hey, Miss Lenity and Rogue Girl. And Violet's TV. Welcome to the stream. Don't see anybody over at YouTube yet, but if there's anybody there, welcome as well. Alright, so we did it. We got the Hydra heads all printed in one go, or 2 plates. Got them all printed last night. That I think the printing times that my software estimates are a little off, because my printer itself said that the one with the tail took 8 hours. Which is pretty rad. I think that may be the biggest print that I've ever done, at least on the resin printer. Alright, well enough talking about me. Let's take a look at this thing. Let me swap over to painting camera. There we go. Oh, I need a place for my water bottle. I'll put you over there. So here it is. Here are all the heads in all of their glory. Printed out a couple bases too. These ones have the recessed bottom for the magnets. I'm probably not going to put them on a stand just because these magnets aren't very strong. But I am going to magnetize it because when I set it in my little portable case, it won't jiggle around. So we'll hang on to these. Put this up there for now. Cool. Alright, so let's scooch these pieces out of the way. We'll get these character book pieces out of the way too. Scoot over, Strahd. I need to fix or make some sort of shelf or desk or something over here to keep all this stuff on. It's turning into a bit of a mess. There we go. These guys turned out great. How did this one do? Not bad. Not bad. A little janky, but that's going to be right where the disc is, so that's not going to matter too much. Maybe we can cut on those while this Hydra's drying. Hello, Feet, and Jesus Lord of all. Welcome to the stream. So, we've got this guy. We're going to be assembling and gluing him up. We're probably going to have to do some surgery on him to get these heads to fit in the sockets properly. I'm also going to have to figure out which head goes where. Although I was tinkering with it a little bit when I pulled them out of the curing of it. That I think that all of these neck shapes, all of the holes here, actually not the holes, but like around the outside, they're all different. Which means that I could match them up to the right one. Figure out which one's which, huh? So that one goes there. Let's actually figure that out first. So that one's on the bottom in the middle. This one looks like maybe the top middle. No, that's the bottom right. Bottom right. Oh. Helps if I turn the head the right way. That one's maybe the bottom left. I think that one's the bottom left. And that one's the top right, or top left. Yeah, that one's the top center. And the top right. How's this guy gonna fit? Not too bad. Okay, we'll have to clean these up a little bit. With any sort of home manufacturing. Hey, Jesus is Lord of all. Thanks for hanging out. With any sort of manufacturing, you're going to have some tolerances where it's not going to be quite the exact dimensions. It's just the nature of the beast and something that you just have to work through. So let's see if we can, let's do the top middle one first. So what we're going to do is we're going to, now let me zoom this in a little bit. There we go. So I'm just using an X-Acto knife, and I'll be using a needle file. And they're just cheap needle files. I'm sure expensive needle files are, have their place in a tool chain. But these are just cheap ones that I got from like Harbor Freight for a couple bucks. But if you don't have a Harbor Freight or a way to get needle files, you can probably just get them on Amazon. But like if you like to roll your own stuff, you can make sanding sticks, which are just tongue depressors and sandpaper, like this. And I pretty much just rub like a glue stick on the back of a piece of sandpaper, lay these down, press them so that they dry, and then cut around them. They're pretty easy. And they work really well. Okay. Sometimes I'll make a couple different grits of sandpaper. I'll make like 2 or 3. But this stuff, like sanding resin, it's pretty easy to sand. You don't need a really high grit. And I keep a brush in here that's been kind of messed up a little bit for cleaning this stuff off. I print all of these pieces on the same printer, so there shouldn't be like size or expansion tolerances between different parts that I print, because I print them with the same printer. But there's still like little bumps where the supports were, and like little curls on the edges. When folks say that, you know, there's a lot of work involved in 3D printing, this is a lot of what they're talking about. The post-processing of this kind of stuff can take a little time. I don't want to chisel too incredibly much, because I want these two pieces to fit smoothly together. If there's, you know, too much variance in between the flat surface here and the flat surface on the other piece, then when they finally socket together, it'll have a like a gap. All right, so that needs to come down a little bit more. So now that we've got this smooth and it's still not fitting, we're going to go ahead and bust out the needle file on here. And this shape is supposed to be a square. I mean, like, obviously, but it's supposed to be like a true square. It's not supposed to be like a rectangle. So you can, like, looking down on it, I can see where it is kind of wobbled out to the side. So I'll, instead of just shaving down somewhere, somehow, a certain amount, I can kind of see where it's gotten out of square from it being a little wobbly. So in case anybody was wondering, Jesus, Lord of all, is my dad. Welcome to the stream, Dad. Thanks for coming and hanging out. You doing all right tonight? He's a good guy. I hope you're feeling all right. Hope you're doing well. I don't know if this needle file is going to be small enough to get in this hole. Nope. But I think I have a smaller rectangle one. Too many tools and not enough places to put other tools. I'm just putting the tip in here and kind of scraping back and forth, just to see if there's like a bit of a little elephant's foot or like curling up around the edge that I could knock off, and it looks like there is. Da, 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 do, 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 do. I've had the Octopath Traveler soundtrack in my head because I've been using it for a D&D playlist that I've been putting together. Should be available on my Spotify. If you check out Spotify, search for Washburnello. I've got one called, hey, look at that, it's starting to come together. It's called D&D Castle Danger, I think is what it's called. See, I've got like this gap, and it's like a pretty big gap. Now, there's a couple things we can do for that. We can try to scrape out the inside or shave this down so that it pushes together a little bit more. But it might actually be there because this pieces rounded. Where did my... There it is. So let's try and shave this off a little bit. If this gets a little short, it's actually not too incredibly that big of a deal, because we're going to put some CA glue down in there. Okay, got a nice smoother fit, and that does look like we're going to want to knock this down a little bit. See if we can take some of that rounded edge off and harden it up a little. One of the nice things I like about these needle files is that they have the file on the flat edge, but then on this short edge, there's no ridges. So I can rub it, you know, like this, and it's not going to cut up this part. Ooh, that's producing a lot of dust. Should probably get a mask if I do a bunch of more of this. Alright, I think the other half of this is going to be this part right here. Welcome, YouTube viewer. I don't think I can see who you are. Let me see if I can see who's on there. Nope, still can't see there. I don't see your user list on the side, so I can't say hello. But if you want a hello, log in and I'll say hello. Welcome regardless. I'm glad you're here watching. Alright. Now, what we can do is we can get in here and kind of wiggle it around and rub it back together and cause the two pieces to rub against each other. And then we can pull it out and look for wear patterns to see which parts are contacting, which parts aren't. That way, hopefully, we can see what needs to be chiseled down. Looks just like the corners. Okay, well, I think fighting against this is going to not be the right approach. So what we're going to do is once we glue this up, we will we'll get some baking soda, drape it around in there, and then put the glue on, and that will actually build up. Baking soda reacts to cyanoacrylate, which is the fun stuff in CA glue, or like in super glue. And it will like instantly cure and turn into a solid material, and you can use it for like filling gaps. That's pretty cool. He looks kind of weird and derpy with just the one head. Alright, so this is the top right. And how are you fitting today, sir? You got a little goober in on here. So Hydras. Hydras are pretty cool. I've used them once in a game before. In a Hall of Champions, actually. If you're not familiar, if you haven't watched the stream before, I used to run a periodical one-shot game called Hall of Champions. And it kind of stemmed out from the idea that my friend Ike, he was our dungeon master. And whenever he was like unable to play due to prep or whatever, I cooked up this idea of this interdimensional kind of between the planes, between the worlds, fight club arena thing that players could just bring their characters. They could bring a character from another game. They kind of had to be close to the same level just for, to make it easier for balancing for me. Or they could like bring a character that they just made, like if they wanted to test out a character build. They'd never played Eldritch Knight or something like that, I don't know, and wanted to try it out. Then they could bring it to Hall of Champions, and if it dies, then it doesn't really matter if the character dies. And they could, be goofy and not have a lot of consequences. It was like a way for players to still play, because the dungeon master wasn't available that night. It's a way for us to get together and still play. It was a way for me to practice running monsters, like actually dungeon mastering with monsters, to use monsters that I've never used before, practice my encounter building skills. Just all around good old time. Like most Dungeons and Dragons scenarios, it eventually turned into like a little mini campaign with its own story arc and stuff. But I was able to use a Hydra during one of the Hall of Champions adventures, and it was pretty good. It was a long time ago. I don't really remember too incredibly much about it, because you're kind of limited. Well, I mean, you're not really limited except by your imagination with D&D, but hold on a second. Okay. I kind of limited myself just to make it really easy to set up, because a lot of times we wouldn't have a lot of notice, if we weren't going to play, like if the dungeon master was unavailable. He'd be like, hey, sorry, I only gave you like a day's notice or something like that, but I can't play tonight or something like that. So I wanted something that was really low barrier to entry. It just didn't take a lot of work to spin something up, where I could just roll on a table, figure out what monster is, read up on it, toss them into an arena that I'd already built, and just start running. I need to shave off a little on the bottom there on this side. So yeah, Hydras are pretty nasty. If you've ever seen the Disney Hercules movie, then you kind of know what's up with them. If you've ever seen any of the Marvel movies, you kind of know what's up with them. Cut off one head, 2 more shall take its place. They have a mechanic in there that makes them regenerate heads, and then they get like multiple attacks per head. So the more heads they have, the more dangerous they are, and they can get really dangerous really quick. I'm going to try something. I'm going to try just taking a little bit off the corners. Just rounding that a little bit, seeing if it will fit in there better. 3D printers that are resin-based, like this one, do not play very nicely. It actually works. That actually did exactly what I wanted. They don't play very nicely with sharp corners, like a square, like a cube. They work better with round, organic looking features, in my experience anyway. FDM printers. They work really well with sharp corners. Yeah, there we go. We got a little bit of a gap, but I think it'll be fine. Big boy. Let me, pardon me, microphone. Let me pull up the Hydra stat block. Because I don't remember the specifics for it. Let me take a look here. Hydra. Alright, so it's a huge creature. So that's already very big. Not a big deal. Looks like it's a challenge rating 8. It's a huge monstrosity, armor class 15, so not an incredibly high armor class. You don't want a very high armor class for if you need to hit the creature a lot. Like if it's a big hulking creature and it's going to take a lot of punishment before it goes down. You don't want it to have a high armor class, or that's going to be a war of attrition. It's going to be annoying. Difficulty isn't just in a monster's defense. It's a good thing to remember when you're looking at the difficulty of a creature. So AC 15, pretty easy to hit. It's got 172 hit points. It's got a swim speed of 30 feet and a regular movement of 30 feet. But the fun stuff, it's really strong. Holy cow, it's got a 20 strength and a 20 constitution. But its intelligence is only 2, so that's -4. So it's really, really dumb, kind of instinctual, but boy is it strong and boy is it hardy. So yeah, it's got a feature called multiple heads. So it says the Hydra has 5 heads. While it has more than 1 head, the Hydra has advantage on saving throws because it's all of its eyeballs are connected and it can look around and see the different creatures from different angles and stuff. Against being blinded, charmed, deafened, frightened, stunned, and knocked unconscious. Makes sense. Whenever the Hydra takes 25 or more damage on a single turn, one of its heads one of its heads dies. If all the heads die, the Hydra dies. So it's like an interesting way of doing hit point damage. Like you could actually kill this thing by like stabbing it through the heart or something like that. If you because it has actual hit points. But seeing as though it has 6 heads, that's 25 hit points per head. That's going to show my intelligence here. 1, 2, 3. That's 150 hit points, even though the thing has 175 hit points. 172 hit points. So you don't have to actually do 172 hit points of damage to kill this thing. You can just do 150, but the thing is that you have to do that 25 damage each round to kill one of the heads. Otherwise you're just poking at its ankles and hitting chip damage and just chipping away at its total. So there's a couple different strategies here. You can try to do some pretty big heavy hitting stuff, or this can be like a force to be reckoned with that needs to be battled out over a long period of time, maybe with traps or some creative thinking on the player's parts. Pew pew pew. Now listen up, here's a story about a little guy that lives in the Blueville. Blue World, not Blueville. Hey, A&MCC. Welcome to the stream. So yeah, these things are really tricky. You got to do tons of damage to them. And doing 25 damage, is it in round? Whenever it takes 25 in a single turn. So not a round, that's a turn. That's like a single character. Well, it could be more than a single character if you're doing like held actions and coordinating all of your turns to fire off at the same time. And just making like a concerted effort against the Hydra. It's gonna come off a little bit more. But they're pretty scary. At the end of its turn, this is still part of the multiple heads feature. At the end of its turn, it grows 2 heads for each of its heads that died since its last turn. Unless it has taken fire damage since last turn, the Hydra regains 10 hit points for each head regrown in this way. So, yeah, at the end of its turn, if it loses a head from taking 25 points of damage, it gains 20 points of damage back, or 20 hit points back. Like, that's crazy. And it gets 2 more heads. So maybe it'd actually be better to not do 25 damage in a round. Or discover its secret and do fire damage against it. And that'll keep it from regenerating heads. But yeah, it's super scary because it has reactive heads. So for each head the Hydra has beyond 1, it gets an extra reaction that can be used only for opportunity attacks. So if you get guys up in melee, they have to be stuck in melee because they're going to get 6 attacks of opportunity against them every time somebody moves away. So you definitely want mobility. You want something like Misty Step or something to get out of range. It's also hard to sneak up on them because they one of their heads is always awake. Okay, starting to come together. Look at that. Look at this big boy. Uh-oh, I think my camera's delaying. What's going on with you, camera? The camera's way behind. Let me see if I can fix this. Let's set you to USB. I think it was going through the Wi-Fi. I think that may have been the issue. Oh, that's because I didn't have the stupid USB cord plugged in. Because I'm a dork like that. I should call this the Always Something stream. Because there's always something. There we go. Yeah, that's better. That's a lot more stable. Hey, Keys! Welcome to the stream. Sorry I didn't see you right away. I'm streaming to YouTube and Twitch. And Twitch is kind of like my primary stream. That's where the chat comes in. Like on the screen and stuff. And so I'm a little bit new to the streaming on YouTube. Glad to have you, though. We haven't talked in a long while. We are printing and painting the monster manual, the entire thing from A to Z. And tonight we're working on the Hydra. It's a scary boy. Alright. Alright, so that's 1, 2, 3. Let's see if we can get this guy on. Oh, he's got... That thing got really super deformed. Yeah, so Hydras are scary. I used one in a Hall of Champions game that I played once. And I had the arena. It was like a standard sized arena. It was like 120 feet by like 90 feet or something like that. It's kind of looked like a football stadium, although not to scale. And the or more like a coliseum. And it would like the doors would open up and the players would come out, and then there would be the monster in the middle, and they'd be like, "Ah, to battle!" But with the Hydra, like depending upon the monster that we were fighting, I would like change up like the look of the Colosseum. It would still look like it, but it might be flooded, or it might have like lava crags in it or something like that, because this was like some mystical, otherworldly dimensional place. And so this one, when they were fighting the Hydra, I had like a bunch of trees instead of stone columns, and it was kind of swampy, so there were places of raised terrain, like little islands in the swamp, where they wouldn't have difficult terrain and difficult movement. Hey, Lucram. Welcome. And as a bit of a misdirection, so one of the things that the Hydra can do is it can hold its breath for an hour. So I had it submerged in the swamp, and I had out above the swamp a bunch of bullywugs, which are like these little frog hop around guys. And so it was like a bit of a misdirection. They were kind of thinking, or the idea was that they were thinking that they were going to fight all these bullywugs, because I'd never used bullywugs before. But there was, in the middle of the map, there was this big Hydra sleeping underwater, waiting for them. Well, actually it wasn't sleeping, it was just sitting under there. Oh no, I broke the little thing. Well, actually it looks okay without it. If it was in the middle, I would have been more concerned. So yeah, the idea was to get the bullywugs to draw them out from the trees, from their cover, draw them in towards the middle of the map, and then ambush them with the Hydra, and then lock them there with his with his 6 reactions that he gets per turn, which is insane. I don't remember too much more about what went down. I think a player died in that game, but it's like it's Hall of Champions, so it's low stakes. You were there? You were in the Hall of Champions Hydra game? You should tell us about it. See if you remember. You probably remember more of what went on. What character did you play? I don't think you were playing Carcos. Didn't you have like a barbarian that you were playing for a while? Yeah, it was a long time ago. I think that was one of the first games that I had attempted to play, or attempted to run like online. Is that even the right hole? That has to be the right hole. This thing is just so huge. Like it's oversized. The socket is, or that is compared to the socket. So what's everybody doing tonight? Saturday night? Time to chill out? Time to party? I'd like to pull out another Hydra, especially now that I have a mini for it. That'd be I think that'd be really fun to pit a Hydra against some of my friends. But as a dungeon master, you can't just be like, I'm gonna make them fight a Hydra because I think they're cool. It's gotta fit with the story. It's gotta be plausible. You don't want to break their immersion. Just chilling. Chilling's a good thing. I think the world would be a better place if people chilled more. But I won't wax philosophical. Alright, that's got to come down. I think we're okay left to right. But top to bottom, which way is this going to need to go? I think we're gonna... I think we have to take it off the top. Just a little bit off the top. So the tolerances on these 3D prints, especially these square parts, they can just get really wobbly because you're dealing with liquid. You're not dealing with you know, layers that you're building up or that you're like squirting down with an FDM printer. It's a very different beast. It's a lot more, not really a lot more, I was gonna say it's a lot more difficult to wrap your head around, but I think that might have just been me because I was used to an FDM printer before I got into resin. But we've talked about it, like when I was doing the supports on this Hydra, how it's it's like all upside down from an FDM printer. You know, you're not laying material down and trying to keep gravity from from messing it up. You're not fighting against gravity, you're fighting against suction as it's pulling the material up away from the plate. I'm gonna zoom this camera back out. Not that far. That far. There we go. Alright, we took a little off the top. Let's see if this fits on here now. Nope, still not yet. It's got to go a good bit more too. This one was really out of whack. This was one of the ones that we did straight up and down, so I wonder if that had something to do with it. Hall of Champions was a bunch of fun. It was a mixture of I drew a bunch of inspiration from a lot of different places, but I think really the success of it was just being able to have a low barrier of entry to preparing for it. Dungeon mastering takes a long time to prep. The general rule of thumb is you're going to prep about an hour per an hour of play. 1 hour prepped per 1 hour play. So if you're going to play a 3-hour Dungeons and Dragons game, you can expect, at least at the beginning when you're starting out, until you've kind of learned the tricks of the trade and what works for you, you can expect about 3 to 4 hours of prep. I've gotten that down to about an hour. I can get a game thrown together pretty decently in about an hour. Normally it takes me about 2 hours for like a 3 to 4 hour game. And I actually prefer to have those 2 to 3 hours, that 1 to 2 hours spread out across a couple days. I like to get all my notes down and all my thoughts put together, and then just like let it sit in the back of my head for a day, so I can kind of stew on it and think about it, and then I'll come back and write the rest out, like refine my notes. But one of the reasons that I can do that is I've been like very slowly over the years adjusting and refining my dungeon mastering process. Let's see if we can get all these heads in here. So like I pre-prepare a lot of things. Like I front load a bunch of work that, oh man, he's really coming together. That looks really cool. I have a bunch of random tables that I put together. So like one of the reasons Hall of Champion was so easy to run was like at the end of the battle, they would get to roll on a random table and get a magic item as a reward. And some of them were pretty overpowered and broken, and some of them were, consumable things like potions of invisibility or potion of giant strength. I don't know if that is correct. Is that going to hit this other head? And so since I already had that stuff planned out, no, look at that. He's going to crisscross applesauce right there. Since I already had that planned out, that was like a little bit of work that I got to take advantage of every time I played. Instead of having to come up with like what appropriate magic items were going to be there. Also, rolling dice is fun. Getting some clicky-clacky math rocks in your hands and rolling them and seeing what happens. That's the fun part of Dungeons and Dragons, just adding that element of unknown, that even if your players are making decisions and the Dungeon Master is making decisions for the world, you guys still don't really know what's going to happen, because the dice could just make things go sideways. So yeah, I do a lot of things like a lot of pre-prepared material that I've used from and taken from campaign to campaign. I have a list of NPC names. I've also started to use published material instead of like customizing my own adventures. I just use a book and then either use it for inspiration or heavily modify it. That saves me a bunch of time, so that if they go off the rails and go do something crazy somewhere else, then, I've got something, like I can just read up on the book real quick, see what's going on over there, and work it into the story. I don't run adventures out of the book. Like a lot of books are, they'll have like, in this room you have so-and-so, and then in between the dungeons, like when they return to town, so-and-so will approach them and ask them for an ice cream cone or whatever. I don't really do that. I read through the book and see what it recommends happened, and then I transcribe it over into like a little document, a little text document, and that kind of becomes my adventure log. So I can like scroll back and see what happened in previous sessions and whatnot. And I kind of use the books as a reference. That keeps my prep down, so I don't have to make a bunch of stuff. So if they go into a certain shop, I can have already checked out that shop during my prep and see that, oh yeah, this guy's name's Barthen. And he's like this, he's like that. I have this app. Let me see if I can find it. I think I have it on my iPad. It's called Rory's Story Cubes. Yeah, here they are. I use this a lot for... Oh, hey, look at that. There's me, and then there's me. I use this a lot for just random NPCs. So there's all these little dice. and I bought a couple of them. You can buy more sets of them. I wish I have like the actual dice, but they're kind of hard to find. But I'll pick a couple categories. I'll pick 3, and then I will randomize them, roll them, and you can press that button so that they straighten up. And so now we've got like a chess piece, a dude with a shadow, and like a bizarre stand. And they don't necessarily mean anything. They kind of leave it up to interpretation what they are, but you can use that for inspiration for this character. So like this character is a shopkeeper. He used to be royalty, but he got cursed, and now he's a shopkeeper. And like that's his motivation. So like when you're coming up with just some random dude name, you look at your random name table, and his name is Bill Shopkeeper. And then if the players start to look like, hey, they're really interested in Bill Shopkeeper, then you can roll a couple dice, figure out a little bit of his personality, of who he is, and just let the dice determine who he is. Most times they won't notice, and honestly, they don't really care. Because players are smart. They don't expect you to have everything made, or at least mine don't, from the get-go. That's madness, thinking that you have to have the entire world completely fleshed out beforehand. The Dungeon Master's Guide and me recommends that you use the spiral method, where you just make a town with enough wilderness around the outside of it to have adventures in, and then as they venture off into different areas, then you flush those areas out. Just keep them loose concepts until you need them. We're good there. I think it's still more on this inside part here. I don't think that there's a swamp nearby Phandalin where the players are right now. That doesn't mean I couldn't put one there to have a Hydra in it, but that's kind of outside the scope of this adventure right now. I've already got the big bad guy and a goblin horde for them to deal with right now. Oops. Dungeons and Dragons is so fun. If you have the chance to play it, if you've never played it, you should play it. Get a bunch of friends together. Get some paper in front of you. Get out from in front of a screen. Hang out for a couple hours. Get some pizza. I know pizza's stereotypical, but man, Dungeons and Dragons and dinner is like such a good combination. It's like a little dinner party. I was talking to someone the other day and telling them that I kind of equate my D&D games as the modern equivalent, or at least the nerd equivalent, of dads in years past hanging out playing poker. You know, you'd always see like, oh, but honey, it's poker night. We're having the guys over for cards. And they would sit around in their little room and play cards and shoot the breeze and just hang out and eat food, eat sandwiches or whatever. That's kind of like what D&D is for me and my friends. We just hang around, eat snacks, eat food, tell a story, slay some monsters. Good, clean fun. There we go. One more. Look at that big scary guy. He's big and scary. This is going to take some time. What are we at? We're at 10 o'clock already. Oof. Oof size large. It's a big oof. We haven't even really started cleaning it up yet. I've got a bunch of support holes that I need to clean off of this thing. You know, I think that knife really helped. Just shaving it down. I think that really helped speed things up. Now, if you're interested in playing D&D, there really isn't a lot that you need to do to get started. There we go. The basic rules are actually available online for free. Wizards of the Coast has essentially open sourced them. It's called the SRD. I think it's called like this, the standard rules document or the source rules document or something like that. I forget what it stands for, but it's called the SRD, and it's just like the basic guidelines for how D&D is played. And on Wizards of the Coast's website for Dungeons and Dragons, they have a bunch of pre-generated character sheets that you can just download and print. They're form fillable PDFs if you want to like use them on a computer or tablet and just type in your answers, or if you just want to print them off, they have the printable ones too. But then but you don't have to like actually make characters. You can just use the pre-generated ones. And as far as dice are concerned, they're pretty cheap. They're $3 or $4 for a set online. I think I even bought like a set of 6 for like $7 or $8 that I gifted my players so that they'd have their own dice. But I mean, you can get like dice roller apps. There's a really nice one called Nice Dice. That's like 99 cents. Just use your phone. There's websites for dice rollers that you could just use. The barrier to entry is pretty low. And you can even play with 2 people, with a dungeon master and a single player. They released some rules for what are called sidekicks, and the number of people in your party is really important, balance-wise, for D&D. Yeah, there's the basic rules. Thank you, Luke Rumchan. They released some rules for sidekicks, so you could have the dungeon master playing the DM, and then a person, like a player, playing a character, and then they would get a sidekick that comes along with them, and then the dungeon master and the player kind of share control of them. The player would get to control them on a mechanic level during combat, and then the dungeon master would control them like talking back and forth, like they would role play them. So yeah, you can there's actually some really fun one-on-one sessions that I've seen on YouTube. But it really doesn't take a lot. If you want to play with, without sidekicks, a party of 3 is pretty typical. So get your 4 players to get 4 people together, a dungeon master and 3 players. And Matt Colville, he's a really popular dungeon master, made an adventure called The Delian Tomb, and it's specifically designed for new players, just to get people into the game. You can play it in one night, one 3 to 4 hour game. It's very role play light, just kind of gets you used to the action and the combat and the mechanics. And it's really great fun. Just get some pizza, sit down together, roll some dice, be goofy. Don't take D&D too seriously. It's not some people can take D&D very, very seriously. And if that's your jam, I mean, that's your jam. But you don't have to the more and more I play Dungeons and Dragons, the less serious I take it. I kind of go. I used to like take it really seriously, like, oh, this is a living world, this is story. But the fact of the matter is that D&D becomes serious on its own. Like, it generates its own seriousness. You don't have to inject seriousness into it. You can have a very funny, goofy game, and it will just become serious. There's a webcomic I saw a while ago about Slap Happy Jack, who was like this joke character. And so the first couple panels of the comic is Slap Happy Jack saying, like, the player talking about how, yeah, his name's Slap Happy Jack. He's a rogue pirate clown. And the dungeon master's like, okay, a what? A rogue pirate clown? He's like, yeah. And it rattles off like a bunch of like feats and like character build stuff about how he can do X amount of damage in a single turn by throwing cream pies. And it's just like incredibly goofy. And then the last page, like the last pane of the comic, it shows Slap Happy with his party of adventurers, and he's like got an eye patch now, and he's like all scarred up, and they're in this dungeon, and the door slams down onto his shoulders, and he's like holding it, and he's like, Aquaria, Ronan, get out, leave me. And they're like, no, I'll never leave you. And Aquaria comes up to him and says, Slappy, and he's like, I know, Aquaria, I've always known. And it's like, that happens all the time. It's like, you get with the goofy stuff, and it's all silly and everything, and then like the game just always goes for a serious turn, and it's like silly, but with the serious stuff. People will fall in love with cats, and they'll try to tame every single cat that they come across and add it to their party, and then it's like everyone's having a goofy old grand time, and then some goblin kills the cat, or one of them, and they go on this quest to hunt down the goblins who did their cats wrong. Or it's crazy how people will just fall in, like, create a story and fall in love with it, and just have a grand old time. So don't be too serious. Just be consistent. Consistency is important. You can't make one ruling one day and then a different ruling another day. You got to keep that internal consistency up. But it doesn't matter if it's goofy or not, as long as it's consistent and they know that that's how the world works. Then it's gonna be a good old grand old time. Let's take all of these off. Yeah, you should look it up. The comic's pretty great. Slap Happy Jack. You know what? I'm feeling the need for a water break. Let me look up Slap Happy Jack real quick. Where's my OBS stream? There you are. Wow, what is going on with my internet connection? Holy bagoobers. Yeah, that's we're not going to do that. We're not going to wait 1995 internet speeds for pings to load. Guess you'll just have to take my word for it, or Google it yourself. Lucrom, see if you can find a link to it. It's pretty great stuff. I just love it. He's like, I know Aquaria. I've always known. Most folks fall in love with their characters too, even if they're like a goofy character concept, like a rogue pirate clown. Because it's all about the stories that you make along the way, and that's like, I know that's cheesy. The friends are the friends that we made along the way. But it's true. You know, it's all about storytelling. Storytelling, if I could wax philosophical for a little bit, is such a basic, fundamental human thing. You know, people have been telling stories for ages. And storytelling still resonates with people today. I mean, that's why social media is such a big thing. It's like people want their story to be heard. People want to be the star of their own show. You know, they want to. I heard somebody say that like a lot of people would be happy watching their own life with them as the star of it. I mean, even when you meet friends, you're like, hey, what'd you do this weekend? Oh man, let me tell you, I was at the grocery store the other day. This crazy person walked in. You know, that's storytelling. You're not like, oh, there's a crazy person at the grocery store. Oh yeah? Or you're like, you know, what'd you do? I went to the grocery store and bought food, and then I watched a show. You know, that's not really engaging. Oh man, can you believe it? That one crazy thing? Dude, that's nuts. Did you see that game? That's what I like about D&D. I like the shared stories. That does not look square at all. Holy cow, what is going on with that? This thing has gotten seriously warped. Maybe it was me. Surely it was not me. It's the model that's at fault. Oh, hey Keys. Have you ever looked into Eurotrack synthesizers? It seems like something that you would totally be into or have exposure with in the past. I've been messing with one called VCV Rack that I made the music for, like this music in the channel for, with. I'm not very good at it, but it's pretty fun, it's pretty cool, and I think it'd be your jam. Yeah, we gotta knock this down a little bit more. So yeah, it doesn't take a lot to do Dungeons and Dragons. It's got a very low floor, but it has a very high ceiling. You can go deep down the rabbit hole that is Dungeons and Dragons, and that's not for everybody. And like one of the biggest dangers, I was talking to the pastor at the church that we're going to about D&D, because he'd never played before, and he found out that I was a dungeon master and was like, so, you know, what's going on with this thing? And I was telling him that, you know, it's not all satanic cults and everything like the satanic panic back in the 80s cracked it up to be and whatnot. But I said, you know, there is one danger, but it's like a danger that's with everything, is that it will consume your time if you let it. It will just eat your time to shreds because it has a very high ceiling. But it has a very low floor too. You can make it as small and simple as you want. Yeah, VCV is rack software. And then there's like a bunch of modular synthesizer modules that you can plug into it. I do pretty well with making music on it. I just don't understand a lot of the deeper concepts, because it's like it's emulating like electrical voltage and oscilloscopes and stuff like that. It's pretty and I'm not good with that kind of stuff. I need to bring that down a little bit. We need to shave a little bit off the tippy top here. So my hope and plan for tonight is to get this Hydra cleaned and assembled. We're probably not going to paint it. I doubt we're going to get that far. There we go. If you know anything about me and my streams so far, low barrier to entry is what it's all about. I don't want to spend my life playing or preparing for D&D. I want to play D&D. Like, that's not my life, but like when it comes to D&D, I don't want to spend all my time preparing and everything. I want to play. I want to facilitate the game and share that enjoyment with my players. So my minis are what I call table ready. If it's good enough, like they're just good enough to get onto a table and to either impress the players so that they're like, oh wow, that's really cool, good job, John, because my ego needs to be stroked every once in a while. Most often, though, it's for them to say, holy crap, that thing is huge and scary looking, and we're really worried about dying in tonight's game. That's kind of like, that's what I'm going for. That is the wrong one. Is it that one? Nope. Is it that? Ah, there's that one. I wish this music that was playing right now was being synthesized live, but my MacBook can't handle it. Like, I think it can handle it performance-wise, but Macs have, like, I use a MacBook Pro, and Macs have this weird audio glitch where it'll crackle and pop every once in a while. And it just sounds terrible, especially when the CPU is really taxed. I think it has something to do with it swapping back and forth between different processes and like suspending stuff in the background, and it just makes this nasty popping sound, and it's terrible. So it's like it just can't handle it. Man, look at that! Oh, that's so cool. And for comparison, here's Castile, Oleander. He's one of the players in the game that I'm a player in. And look at that bad boy next to him. Oh, he's so big and scary. He's so big and scary. That's rad. He's like, nom nom nom, I'm gonna eat his head. Nom nom nom. So this is a huge monster. Huge monster. Monsters are classified, like, one of the things that they did in 5th edition of Dungeons and Dragons was really condense and streamline a lot of stuff. I'm gonna take a sip of water. So the way that they work is you have medium size, which, if you notice the grid there, it's a 1-inch square. Up from that is large, like this Ankeg, which is a 2-inch square, and then huge is a 3-inch square. And then past huge, I believe, is gargantuan? And gargantuan is like a bit different. It's like a 4-inch base and up. So like this purple worm is a 4-inch base. You can see it right there. But like if I was to pit my players against, say, that would also be a gargantuan creature. So this Hydra is no joke. It's a pretty big beastie, being a huge creature. All right. So what we'll do, I'm going to disassemble this. We're going to take these heads off. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Take the tail off. We're going to clean up the body. And what we're doing is we're just removing zits from the supports from the printer, and just cleaning it up in general. And then what we'll do is we'll clean up a head, attach it, and then rinse and repeat. So let's see here. We got a bunch of goop. Get my camera. Get under here so you guys can see it better. So one of the things with resin printers, or at least that I did with this one, you don't have to do it, but I hollowed this model out because I didn't want to eat all of my resin, because especially with this being a huge creature, I wanted to hollow it out, save resin. When you hollow out big models, you need to poke drain holes in them so that you don't end up wasting resin inside. Now you might be thinking, well, John, it's 3D printing. As it's printing, won't it hollow out? Like, you know, like how will it fill up? Well, that's a fantastic question. And the thing is that, have you ever, when you were a kid, sat in the bathtub and or like in a pool and put a cup of water under the water and then lifted it up upside down, and then the water was upside down in the cup, but it was above the water level? That's what happens. If you poke a hole in the bottom of the model and it drops it down into this pool of resin, it'll create a suction. When it lifts up and separates from the light sensor inside the pool of resin, it doesn't lift entirely out of it, and it will create this suction and fill, like it'll keep resin in the whole thing. So you need to pop a drain hole in the top and in the bottom, and that'll give a place for air to go into the model, and it'll give a place for the resin to pop out. So this one was actually kind of nice. You can see it right there. I put it in the bottom hole here, and then I put it in the back here in the socket for the tail. Saves a lot of resin, especially for a big mini like this. Now there is a downside in that, well, it's not really a downside. A thing to consider is that minis feel cooler when they're heavy. So like if you do hollow them out, they can feel pretty cheap, or you know, they might just feel cooler if they were full resin. One thing that I did to get around that with my purple worm is I hollowed it out like a little bigger than normal, and then after I printed it out in sections. You can see it a little bit here. There's like a seam right there, and right there, and like there. So I printed it out in a bunch of these little sections, and then I made it so that the holes were in the ends and that they lined up, and then I filled it with sand. So it's like you pick that thing up and it's like a nice solid heavy piece. It makes it feel really, really pro and really quality, but it's actually just hollowed out resin filled with sand. And I did sand so that I could like shake it around and make sure that it got into all the different corners and that it wouldn't rattle around. Like if you put rocks or like beans in it or something like that, it's gonna shake around like a rain stick. And I mean, if you know you want your purple worms to make a battle cry that sounds like a rain stick, then sure, you can pick the model up, flip it upside down. It'll go blah, 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 blah. Scare your players with it. That's a creative use of that. That one's for free. You can have that one. But I just used sand because I wanted it to feel heavy. Also, when they're really big like that, the weight has a lot to do with it being stable on the table. That's a rhyme. You don't want it to tip over and fall over. And typically the base is bigger than the mini, so it doesn't do that. But once you get into like huge and gargantuan minis, it's you know, you have like big sprawling models with like dragons with their wings out to the side, and you know, you want to make sure it's got you want to make sure it's stable so that it doesn't tip over and break. And then you cry because you put an hour into supporting all of the different pieces and 2 hours into assembling and cleaning it, and then another 4 hours into gluing it. I mean, into painting it. And you're like, I had 8 hours of time into that mini. And now it's on the floor because I didn't fill it with sand. Actually, you know what? I might fill this thing with sand now that I'm thinking about it. Probably wouldn't do much, but I could do it. I mean, I have some sand. I bought some, man, I forget what it was. I think it was a bag of playground sand that I like sandbox sand that I used for a project, and I just filled some up in a mason jar and I used it for flocking. You can when I make terrain, because I also make terrain. I haven't made any on this stream yet, but that's on the list. ANMCC, if you're still watching, I haven't forgot about you. You're not still watching, but welcome, A10. I do make terrain, and I'm due to make some new houses. But flocking is like when you put texture on something. So you'll like spray some white Elmer's glue on a surface, toss some sand on it, let it dry, and shake the loose stuff off, and it gives it kind of like a grainy texture. It's really good for making like rocky terrain, actually, since it's so small. It's about the size for making like gravel. All right, well, there you go. So I had some, and I was like, you know, I'll just use it. I just had it in a mason jar. So all these little zits here on the bottom, I don't know if you guys can see them or not. They're kind of small. These are just where the supports contacted the model. I like to break these off when the model is still wet. I'll pull the model out of the 3D printer, let it drain for a little bit, because it's a waste of resin if you don't let it drain. You want it to drain back into the reservoir, and then I'll wash it in isopropyl alcohol and let it dry for, you know, a couple minutes to let all the alcohol dissipate from it. If you noticed on the front here, it's a little shiny. Let me see if I can get the right angle. Right in here. You can kind of see a little bit of that shine. That's from whoa. What was that? Ooh. Came out of nowhere. It's like I inhaled the dust of it. And what was I talking about? Ooh, that took the wind out of me. I was talking about supports, cleaning up supports. I was talking about cleaning minis. So yeah, you dump them in isopropyl, let it rinse off and dissolve all of the liquid resin. And once that's done, like the model itself will still be a little tacky. Like you can take your fingernail and like etch it and scratch it and cut off the material. That's the best time to remove supports. I have seen, and I have in the past, where people will cure the model. They'll put it in their UV oven and let it cure with the supports on, and then break the supports afterwards. To me, that is not doing yourself a favor, because it makes the supports very brittle. And then if the supports are attached to something very sensitive, like these little spikes, then it's like a lot more force on the other side of the spike. And you can end up breaking pieces off because it's brittle. 3D printed resin cures very brittle. At least the gray, what is this, Anycubic gray that I use. It's decently strong, and it supports a decent bit of weight, and it's got like a little bit of pliability, but yeah, it's brittle. It will crack and leave a nice shiny reflective surface, almost like broken obsidian or something like that. So I like to break all the supports off while it's still kind of uncured, and then I'll toss it into my oven to cure it. And by oven, I don't mean kitchen oven. I have a little lunchbox that I strung some UV lights in and put a little photo. It's like, what are those little photo solar powered cell things? They put them on like calculators. It's a little stand, like a little display stand that has a bunch of those on it. Really low powered, and it just spins around. You're supposed to put it in like a display case and put a fancy thing on it, and it just sits there and spins and shows it off. But that way it's powered by the UV lights, and I can just set my model on it, and it'll spin around and cure it. It's also got like a clear base, so it'll even cure like the underside of the model. Okay, there's the tail. Let's go ahead and get this on here. We're going to use some CA glue, which is cyanoacrylate. It's just super glue. But if you're in the hobby community, CA glue is the search term that you want to be aware of. And I'm thinking, whoops, I'm thinking I'm going to put it in on this side. One of the things I like about D&D, actually, you know what, Keys? I've talked about people, talked to my viewers about you, a little bit, and how you were talking to me about that ingress, egress, consuming and creating cycle. And it's like, it's so true for me. That I want to create and that I want to consume, and that I kind of go back and forth between these two. And D&D is just a very good mix of that. There are so many disciplines, creative disciplines that you can get into with D&D. Writing, storytelling, improv, comedy, pacing, balance. .3D printing, painting, art. There's so many different things. Oh, and I just glued my finger to that. Okay, and you'll notice that that glue did not fill the gap. Like it soaked down in there, which is what I want. We're gonna patch that up with some baking soda and some super glue. But D&D, like, it just scratches that itch. It's like both the creative and the consuming. Wow, this thing's still in my throat. The creative and consuming at the same time. I get to spend time being creative before with my session prep. And then I get to consume this adventure and story at the table. It's great stuff. If you're interested in playing D&D, I highly recommend it. I may have a biased opinion, just because it is my jam. Also, give it a couple games. Like, if you instantly discover that it is just not your jam, I forgot to clean this head before I put some glue on it. Those are the kind of mistakes that we have here on the show. Give it a couple games, because one of the nice things about D&D is how the world adapts and changes to what you do. You know, you have the quintessential experience of starting in a tavern and ordering food, and then the blacksmith coming in and saying, "They got my girl," and then you go off on a quest to save the blacksmith's daughter. You slay the goblins. You make friends along the way. You try to befriend one of the goblins. He ends up being goofy and quirky and is now he's now like a sworn ally of the party or whatever. But goblins aren't really loyal, so he might betray the party later, and that will cause a sad, serious moment. And you're gonna go on this cool adventure and have this story to tell. And then after a month or so, you're going to make your way back to the tavern, and it's going to be a year in game, or maybe a couple months in game. And that tavern keeper's not going to be there. They're going to have gone off on a supply run, and they got ambushed by goblins and died or something, and now it's just the wife, or the kids have inherited it and they're running it now. And it just makes this really neat living, breathing world. Or maybe the tavern keeper didn't die. Maybe you came back and he was injured by a goblin ambush, and now you don't have to, but if you guys liked him, you might give him one of your health potions, or you might go on a quest to see if you can find this side or the other, or be his entourage and help him guard him and bring him to a place that can heal him or something like that. And it's all because of the choices that you made along the way. I must have completely missed these front feet. To me, that's the best part. I really enjoy the adventures and the puzzles and the creativity and stuff like that, but when D&D starts to get long and starts to establish lore and history and a big baddie who's crazy comes along and he's like, "I'm gonna destroy this town because I need so many souls to power my big bad thing." If that's the first adventure, you're gonna be like, "Okay, well, he's pretty big and scary, and I doubt we can kill him. So let's go over here and do this other thing, because we don't know those people in that town." But holy cow, if it ends up being your town, the town that you started in, the town that you guys ended up getting all of the cats from. See that? That's a callback. And all of your cats are there. And now this guy, he's not trying to kill all the cats. He just wants to kill every creature and collect every soul to power his big soul machine or whatever. But he's going to kill all your cats unless you get back there. And all of the players love the cats. And you're invested in the narrative, and you have willing suspension of disbelief. And even though you might be underpowered or not up to the task, you still really feel compelled to do it. And that's when you start simulating adventure. That's when it's like a movie where the heroes are like, against all odds, we're still gonna try. But it's like a legit motivation this time, because your players are like, "Those are my cats." Or, in typical player fashion, it could just be goofy again, because they might be thinking, Alright, guys. Big Baticus has to be stopped. He's gonna kill all of our cats. And everyone's like sitting down at the table. The little table in the back of the wagon as it's going down the path. And they're like, alright, we need to make a game plan. How are we gonna get all the cats out? Without fail. They don't care about the people. They just care about their cats. Sometimes it's like that. And then everybody rolls their eyes, or like the DM rolls his eyes, and everybody cheers when they figure out how to get all the cats out. Hey, I've got to conjure... Damn, if I use conjure animals, could we conjure our cats? Would that teleport them here? The DM rolls his eyes and like, you don't care about all those people? And they're like, well, that one guy was a jerk. And, maybe we know about these magic items somewhere that would really help us out. We could probably just go over and get those and then come back and kill him afterwards. Or stop him afterwards. But we need to get our cats out of there. Every player wants to have pets in D&D. I don't know what is up with that. But if you've been paying attention to the story so far, you probably know that as a dungeon master, pets are annoying, but they really motivate the players into adventure. But it is kind of funny sometimes to think about how, like, people will, like a townsperson will die, and it's just like, oh yeah, he's a statistic. He's just a dude in the background. But if you give the players a little dog, or let them, DM, I really want a pet dog. Like, are you sure? Are you ready? Are you ready of keeping care of a dog? Yes, DM, I'm ready with the responsibility. Okay, well, you better take care of it. And don't get, mad at me if something happens to it. Don't you dare let anything happen to my dog, DM. Hey, I don't control all that. It's the monsters. The monsters do what they want to do. I'm just an unbiased arbiter. And honestly, players, sure, I know you love your puppy, or your blink dog, or your, miracle fire squirrel, or whatever. Bringing it into combat with a Hydra, I mean, you're being really irresponsible. I think the morale... But without fail, players pick up pets, or they'll pick up people and treat them like pets. Like a goblin or something. And they instantly think that if they roll high enough, that they instinctually think that if they roll high enough, that they can like modify the memory of whatever creature and make it instantly loyal to them. That's not the way dice work. But I'm okay if you think that that's the way it works. Because goblins are cowards, and goblins will say whatever they want us, or whatever they can say to get you to not kill them, so until they get away or get an advantageous point. They're crafty, evil, nasty little guys. They are not your friends. Unless, of course, you cast Modify Memory on them, and you convince them that you're their friend. Three more heads to go. Oof, man. And it is... Goodness, 10:41. I think we're probably going to get it cleaned up. I'm getting better with my estimates. I really appreciate you guys hanging out. I'm not trying to, I say this a lot, but I'm not trying to build up like a big, huge stream here or anything. Like, I do this prep anyway. This is like my own personal goals for my players and my team and everything, like my game. And I just like having I like having people to talk to. Goodness. Wow. I'm sorry about the cough. Button for my mic. So right now in my current game, I'm running 2 games actually. I'm playing a game that we're calling the Dungeon Delve, which is just, it's like a simple, so Hall of Champions finished, and we had to like come up with something else. So I had the idea of just doing a dungeon crawl, you know, not a lot of story, just kind of crawling through a dungeon, killing monsters, using XP to level up, not milestone experience. And just giving it a try, like making it a harsh environment. It's like 21 floors or 11 floors or something like that. And they're just working their way down to the bottom to escape. And it's been really fun. I've got that game going on. And that was a prime example of the players doing something goofy and then it becoming really important and crucial to the campaign. For those of you new to the channel who have not heard me talk about the Dungeon Delve, they all started off as not necessarily criminals, but there was this dude named the Buccaneer who they have somehow drawn the ire of the Buccaneer, and it was like up to them to come up with a reason why the Buccaneer hates them. And he has banished them to an island, so they were like trapped in these cages. The cages are dumped on the shore. They started with no equipment, no gold, no anything, just like a burlap sack. For the most part, there was some special rules about that. And then they were just like, everything was, they were supposed to gather all of their gear from there. Like from how they would encounter and see stuff. And one of the things that they did was they escaped the cages. The cages actually weren't even really, that was like an improv thing. I was gonna have them just dumped off on the shore. But then at the last minute I was like, I know my players. They're going to try and hijack the boat. They're going to try and hijack the boat, get back onto the ship. If they roll really well, because they had some crazy stats, they could probably do it, and it would completely derail this this adventure. So I was like, you know what? I'm going to put them in cages, and I think that, you know, would make more sense for them to be in cages. So they were in cages. Well, guess what? They took that and rubbed it in my nose and fell in love with the cages. And they were like, I'm bringing this cage with me. And I was like, you're bringing the cage with me? They're like, we don't have anything, but we have this cage. So, I mean, we're being resourceful. We're gonna use this cage. So they're like rolling this cage around with them. And then this joke came up where they started calling the cage Nicholas or Nick. And I was like, haha, yeah, Nick Cage. All right, I get it. And one of the players, his name was Chris, he was like, you know what's going to happen. Like, we're bringing this cage with us. It's going to become central to the story at one point. And they're going to end up falling in love with this cage. And sure enough, it ended up saving them in like a clutch moment. And they used it in like so many different instances, to the point where they would get into a dangerous spot and they'd be like, oh man, we left the cage back there. Oh no, what are we gonna do? We don't have the cage. Yep, Luke Rom was one of the players in that game. And yeah, and then one of the other players, they got in a really bad spot. They were surrounded by goblins, and Brad, he was like, I'm going to pray to Nicolas Cage. And I was like, come on, man. Now you're... In my head, I was like, okay, I think this is going a little bit too far. But as a dungeon master, I've learned to embrace the crazy and just say yes. Just kind of see where it goes. And also leave it up to the dice. Let the dice determine things. Because if I just say no, then I'm a bad DM. I'm just like, oh, you never let us have fun. Or whatever. But if I roll the dice, then it's like, it's still my fault. Like if you're like, oh, yeah, okay, well you rolled, like, oh, sorry, you rolled low, it doesn't happen. But if I make them roll the dice, then, you know, if it's bad, then it's their fault. It's not really their fault. I don't know why humans are like this, but if I roll a dice and it rolls bad, it's my fault. If you roll a die and it's bad, it's your fault. Because you rolled it. It's random. It's nobody's fault. There's a 5% chance that it's going to be 20 and a 5% chance that it's going to be a 1. The physics of the universe does not care what or determine and decide, you know, what that dice is going to land on. But that's the way people's brains work. And we're playing with people, so we need to understand that. It's going to go this way. So I made him roll. I was like, okay, this is going to be a very high roll. It's going to be a very, very high roll. If there even is some deity out there named Nicolas Cage. And they were just like, okay, fair enough. So I made him roll a D100, which is what a cleric would use to call upon their deity. And if they roll really, really high, it's either really, really high or really, really low. I forget which it is. But it was like a super slim chance, and he rolled really, really well. And I was like, okay, well, the dice have spoken. And I think I came up with some sort of like ceremony or thing that happened. Okay, Keys, thanks for hanging out. Have a good night. I forget the thing that happened, but we ended up stopping the session there, and I was like, well, I guess I'm rolling up Nicolas Cage. I guess Nicolas Cage, the joke has come full circle, and is now going to be in the game. And so Nicolas Cage showed up and saved them, and they don't know the full details of Nicolas Cage and what he's capable of doing, and even who he is. They think that he's some deity to be worshipped or something, because that's part of the joke. But he may or may not. They haven't gotten any confirmation. They've actually only interacted with him once. He gave them some blessings to help them out in their time of need, and went off into the distance. And it's hilarious, and it's fun, and it's goofy. And that kind of play is not for everybody. And I kind of don't want that in every single game. Like, I do like the more serious stories, but I really, really appreciate funny, goofy stuff. And it means more to the players when it's their idea and they came up with it. Like, if I run this Dungeon Delve adventure again, then I'm almost out of time. Where's my clock? 10:51. Like, if I run this Dungeon Delve again, the other players are not gonna, like, start a Nicolas Cage cult or something. Maybe, I don't know. Every game's gonna be different. And it's reacting to what the players do and going back and forth with them. And, you know, and it's not just saying yes to everything they do. If they're like, you know, I want to phase through this wall because I run and hit it with my head really fast. It's like, you know, you hit your head and you take 1d6 bludgeoning damage as you just crack your head into a brick wall. I mean, you're not going to bend reality and just... If you can do everything and anything, then it just turns into a game of kids sitting in a circle going, uh-huh, nuh-uh, uh-huh, nuh-uh. And that's not fun. Or maybe that's only fun for one person. But if you let the dice roll, and it's like within reason, and it doesn't you know, it makes sense within the confines of your world, and you're having fun, just kind of roll with it. Pull the good old improv yes and, or the comparable improv no but. So it's like, can I do this thing? Yes, you can, and here's what happened. That's yes and. No but is, can you do this thing? No, you can't, but this is what happens. And just kind of roll along with it. So if somebody's like, oh, can I run really fast up the wall and try to phase through it? No, but you are a barbarian, and you have a high strength, and you've got a warhammer. You know, if you spent 5 minutes, you could probably bust a sizable hole in this brick wall. Okay, well, you know, that's an idea. Instead of just shutting people down and saying, no, you can't. Can I do this? Nope. I mean, that's a conversation stopper right there. It's going to make your players not want to ask questions anymore. And D&D is all about questioning, like questions and then resolution. Can I do this? I would like to do this. Yes, you can. Go ahead and do this, and we'll see if it happens. I don't know. Is your chat broken? Like, you've been the only one talking, at least that I've seen. What's going on with your chat? If it shows up in the stream, then that's been what's been working. All right. Ooh, he barely fits on that base too. Look at that. It's a big beefy boy. We did it. I'm not going to put him on the base yet because I'm going to want to paint him off of it, so I can kind of get up underneath it. I'll probably just handle the model like this, paint around. I think I'm going to have to call it tonight. We got 5 minutes. That's not going to be enough time to get this all like baking powdered in there. So we'll probably do that next time and then prime it up and paint it. Start painting. Get a good base coat on it. I may... Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah, so the question is I said bye to somebody, but you didn't see anybody talking or leaving. Keys, the guy I've been referring to, he was watching YouTube. I don't have the YouTube chat being cast to the screen, but I do have it up over on the side so I can talk with and interact with people. I should probably figure out a way to get the YouTube chat on. I don't know, maybe not. I'm really just using the YouTube chat to like auto upload these at the end of the day, or like, you know, when they're all done. Man, this guy's cool. Look at this guy. That's really rad. Is definitely going to need some patching up. Maybe I'll put some green stuff in there. That might actually be easier. Get some green stuff and some sculpting tools and just pack it in there. Cut it smooth. All right, let's go ahead and update our spreadsheet. So this is our Hydra. We finished the Azer. Did we ever mark him off? Yeah, we did. Have a good night, Luke Rum. Thanks for hanging out. C, D, E, F, G, H. Hydra, there we are. Got him printed. We got him cleaned. So next is priming and then painting. Hey, you're welcome for the stream. Thanks for coming back. I missed you the past couple times. I like having you in here. Okay. And then we got the animals. We got the Ankylosaurus and the cats and stuff done last time. I don't think I updated the spreadsheet then. Ankylosaurus. Ankylosaurus. Okay, no, we did. I got it primed. Did I do the cats? Cat. I have 4. They are up to prime. Okay. Yep. All right. Well, thanks a bunch, everybody. Appreciate you hanging out. I stream on Tuesdays and Saturdays. Tuesdays are my For Funsy stream. Well, Saturdays are my Monster Manual stream. That spreadsheet that you were looking at, that's kind of what I'm keeping track of everything, getting it all, getting everything printed and painted and categorized and whatnot. I do that on Saturdays, and then on Tuesdays at 9, I do a For Funsy stream, which is whatever I need. Like if I need a mini for an upcoming game, like for an NPC or for, man, this is something I might do, like some DM crafts. I might work on that character book, or if I need to make a prop, or anything that's just needed, or whatever's my current interest. That's on the For Funsy stream. Sometimes I do bonus streams in the middle of the week, but not very often. Like I did the supporting of the Hydra yesterday because I wanted to get it supported and printed so that I could work on it and paint it a little bit sooner. It's a bigger project. It's going to take... Normally I crack one of these out, the whole thing out in a day, but that's like a medium-sized mini. This Hydra is big and it's going to take a while to get done. So yeah, come hang out and we'll talk more D&D and do some more D&D stuff. If you have any questions, feel free to hit them up in the chat. I'm happy to answer any questions about dungeon mastering, any sort of DM craft type stuff. Happy to share my knowledge. D&D is best learned. It's a tradition that's passed down between people, and it's best to get your information from an individual. So I encourage that. Or if you just want to chill out and listen to the chill tunes, listen to my... Apparently I have a calming voice. That's something that people say. And, you know, happy to have you. Happy to have you. But y'all have a great night, and hope to see you again. Take care, and y'all be good.